So, in this episode of the Mama podcast, we have some very special guests from the Association of South Asian Midwives. I am joined by Nafiza and Benash, and I'm absolutely delighted to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. So, shall we start with you, Benash? Would you like to introduce yourselves and tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Thank you for having us, Heidi. My name's Benash Nazmeen. I am a midwife. I am an educator. I am a migrant. I am a mentor. I am all things human and flawed, as well as just trying to do what I can in the world to make it a better place. My kind of background is looking maternal health inequalities in midwifery and maternity care. And that's maternal, perinatal, neonatal, and wider. I am interested in research and really supporting what I can do in research from the lens of equity, equality, PPI, ensuring representation in research. We know historically we've had research that has not been representative of the communities that we care for. And that's one of the reasons why we have health inequality. So trying to ensure that research is representative of the demographics and is addressing topics that specifically address the needs for those marginalised communities. I'm really interested in kind of digital as we're going more forward with digital access and what that means for people who have digital exclusion, digital literacy issues, digital poverty, meaning that they can't access the things that we would just assume everyone automatically has access to: neurodivergence, LGBTQIA communities and their needs, intersections of it all, and ethnicity too. So lots of things I'm interested in, and that's why unfortunately I have no time, but I love it.
Wow, so that is a lot. That is a lot to unpack. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And for you personally, then, so as you're a migrant, when did you come to the UK and what was your experience of coming into the UK as a migrant?
This is really interesting that you asked me that, because it's one of those where I came as a child, so there wasn't a very definitive point. For me, there was a before and after. When I now think back at it, as I've become more, more aware of this, I realised that there was a time when I belonged, and then there was a time where I didn't feel like I belonged. And that was really interesting looking back at it as an adult now. Um, I think I learned to edit and adapt myself very quickly. And I didn't realize I was doing that until, as an adult, I've kind of reflected and thought about, well, who am I? What is my identity? Am I Kashmiri? Am I British? What does that mean? What does that look like? If I go to Kashmir, everyone says you're British. If I'm here, people are like, are you? And I'm just like, I think I'm everything and anything I want to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's really interesting. And how about you, Nafiza? Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Hello. Thank you, Heidi, again for giving us the opportunity to be here. It's a great honour. So I'm Nafisa, as you know, and yes, I've had a varied career. I'll start with myself. So I'm a British Bangladeshi. So my father and mother came to this country back in the 60s. He was a doctor, so he came on a scholarship with the intention of staying here for 3 years. But obviously it was much longer. He's still here, and hence I'm here. So yes, so he contributed to the NHS for over 40 years. And I am one of 6 siblings. I'm the oldest. Very much so. What was it like when I was growing up? So I grew up in a very white sort of surroundings. I was the only South Asian girl in my school. And at the time, interestingly, I didn't realize that. You don't realize who you are, what your skin color is, because didn't have the knowledge or the understanding of what discrimination or what being different looked like, so you blended in. And it wasn't until I went to university that it was like a culture shock. So my father, he practiced in North Wales, which was a very white village, and we were the only sort of brown people on that street. And when I went to Manchester Uni, suddenly I was surrounded by people who looked like me, and it was it was great feeling that, oh my God, there are people out there that do look like me, and it sort of hits you. And I struggled actually growing up as well, because of all the things you face as a person from the global majority. And at one point, I remember going back to school that, how come my mum looked different to all my friends' mums? She dressed in a sari and whatever. And those things were there. And how come people didn't get my name right? Why have I got such an odd name? So all of the things, they were there. But obviously, after interacting and going to uni and seeing people that look like me, that went, you knew who you are. It was like Benash was saying, you were fighting with your identity. So that was sort of me growing up. And then I was married very young, and what inspired me to become a midwife was when I went to have my firstborn. I was 17, 18 years old, and I remember I was in labour, taken to labour ward, and I was sitting there in the room absolutely terrified, because I didn't know what was going to happen. Yes, my mum, we didn't have those conversations. It's not, you got on with it. And I remember the door opening, and this lady walked in dressed in white, and she looked at me. I looking back now, she looked at me, sort of assessed me, and she just came towards me and she held my hand and said, "Sweetheart, you're going to be all right. I'm going to be here." And I'm getting all chilled now. And I remember feeling like this angel had come in, took me under a wing, and just done it. And I knew it was going to be fine. And I felt at that moment that I want to be like her. I want to make women feel safe and comfortable. So I parked that. I didn't know at the time what I wanted to do. She was a midwife. I didn't understand all that, but I wanted to be her. I wanted to do what she did. So that was my inspiration of wanting to do midwifery. But obviously, it took a long time, because in those days you had to go through nursing before you did midwifery. So I went down that path. So that's, all of those things. And I'm also got a very passion for inequalities, because during my journey I saw the two-tier systems that were going on, but you couldn't say anything at the time. You just acknowledged it. And I always had this conscious that why can't I say something? Why can't I speak out? Because you can see that someone who looked like me, or someone who was from, again, diverse groups, were treated differently, or they didn't get the same care, I suppose, at the time. That was both in my nursing journey and then when I went into midwifery. And it was always in my mind, but I never had the courage, because again, when I was a midwife, I was the only one in my cohort, the only one in my cohort at work. So you are a minority within a minority, and you don't have the courage to speak out. But then things happened, and here we are. And I'm very passionate about ensuring that, we are the voice for those communities who don't have a voice. Yes, with a focus on South Asian communities, but obviously for anyone out there, and also for supporting the workforce, because I think that's important. If you don't get it right for the workforce, it's not going to be right for your communities. And also, I always say, and Benash will agree, South Asian midwives, we're a rare breed. So we need to bring on that representation. And for me, I feel that in my space, I will give hope to the community that, yes, there is someone out there that looks like me, who is the voice, who can, get to those levels that maybe people can't.
Giving hope to the community. That's so lovely. That's absolutely lovely. I love that line. So how did you two meet?
Over to you, Benash.
Well, the three of us met because Sundus is one of our co-founders in a conference. And this conference, interestingly enough, we were always going to. I was going to regularly to conferences, trying to educate and learn and kind of see what's happening out there in the maternity perinatal fields. And it was often that I didn't see people like me at conferences. And Nafisa says similar. And this year, interestingly enough, there was two people on the programme that I wanted to go to both of their talks. One was Nafisa's, one was Sundus's. And unfortunately, apparently they can't put people separately. They had to put both of theirs on at the same time. So I made the point of going to watch Sundas's presentation about the work she was doing with Mama volunteering, and the global work that they were doing with the charity. And then I tried to catch Nafisa later. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch Nafisa later because she was a very busy bee. However, Sundas managed to catch Nafisa and made the link. And then she said, oh, we should all meet up. So afterwards, we arranged to meet up in a day in Tamtanga, in Birmingham, because we're all from all over the place. You see, we're all from different places in the UK, and we met in Birmingham, which is in the Midlands, easy for us all to access. We spent about 6 hours that day sat in Tamtanga, pretty much ordering everything on the menu and talking about everything. We were 3 generations of midwives at that time. Sundus was newly qualified. I had been working in the NH for over a decade, coming into my second decade. Nafisa was a decade ahead of us. So we were 3 decades apart, but we were still seeing, experiencing, witnessing things that Nafisa had witnessed 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were just saying this is unacceptable. So we wrote a memorandum of understanding. We found a name. We were like, we're going to do something about this because we don't think anything's being done. And we just writ it down. Yeah. COVID happened a year later, and it blasted our thoughts and ideas into action, and we set up a community interest company called Association of South Asian Midwives, because apparently all South Asians like their tea, so we went with ASAM as a great acronym. And we have our chai and chats. We want to support the workforce because we recognise the workforce and marginalised members of the workforce are necessary, as Nafisa's already highlighted, are also facing discrimination and behaviours that mean that we are more likely to lose them from midwifery. So we want to encourage people to come into midwifery, but we also want to retain those who are already here. And so with ASAM, we support those members with pastoral support, development opportunities, but also just safe spaces to talk and to feel heard and to be able to, let out any thoughts that are coming to them in a space where they can get feedback, objective feedback, and we want them to feel like they belong, because we've all been very lonely in our journeys, in different places, in different locations. So we have our chai and chats and our Wellbeing Wednesdays for our members of our workforce. And we also recognise that health inequalities need training for staff. So we do training for anyone who's wanting staff. We've done diversity informed perinatal mental health care for LMNSs. We've done other cultural safety training for people interested. And finally, we work with our communities to make sure that their voices are being heard and represented in research, in reports, in different fields and steering groups where decisions are being made about them without them. So we're trying to make sure the voices are heard, that people are invited, and it's recognised that you can't co-produce if the people you are trying to produce for are not present.
Wow, that's incredible work. That's incredible work. And is this going on across the country, or is it in one particular area? Right across the country.
I think we decided early on we were going to go big or go home, and we absolutely went national because we were based all over the show between the 3 of us.
So we are global. That's what I like to say. We are global, national and global.
And when did this piece of work start? When did you start doing this work?
2020.
2020 we officially launched. 2019 was when we had that original conversation. So this is our actual 5th year.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's been an amazing journey, and I know Benash will agree, because we started with nothing. It was an idea. And we had no idea, because we are running a business in essence, aren't we? We're running a company, and it's been a learning curve. Yes, we probably made, I won't say mistakes, but we weren't privy to things. But I think we, like good wine, we are more refined. We're learning, we're still learning, there's lots to learn, and getting good at it, I think. Well, I would hope, and I hope we're having some impact, and I hope that people do see us as leaders, because apparently we are leaders representing the South Asian sort of workforce and community. So it's been a wonderful journey, and wonderful people, both Sundus and Benash, and as Benash said, it's been a very lonely journey, but it's been incredible these 5 years, because ASAM has opened up so much for us, for me as an individual, I'm sure, for all of us and for those around us, the networking and the space that we've gone into, and we hope and aim to continue.
That's just fantastic. So how many people do you think you've helped? Must be thousands.
I
We're
think,
small and mighty, I think, aren't we? We say we're small and mighty, and
yeah,
I would hope the impact is, it's about giving that hope, because for me, we just need more midwives. We need more midwives from our communities on board, and it's about giving that element of hope. I mean, and I think for me, it's about recruitment and retention. But how do we do that? I mean, I know Benash will laugh now, and I've got this vision of going around the country in a red bus. I'm waiting for this red double-decker bus, and just spreading the word, showcasing midwifery amongst our communities, because they need to understand what midwifery is all about, really, because they don't. So for me, if anyone's out there who would like to sponsor us a big bus, we're here.
and I think when the question is, how do you quantify how you've helped people? Recently, I spoke to someone who said to me that you were the only member of staff when I was a student midwife who looked like me that was in leadership. And that gave me hope that I could get to that position. I never interacted with them apart from talking to them on a corridor, and they saw me in my uniform. So, that was before ASAM started. That was just merely existing. When we say when we ask for like quantifiable measurables, the researcher in me wants to start going all positivist and start quoting data and quantifying things, but ultimately our existence is ripples, and those cause waves. We don't see how far those waves go until someone comes back and tells us what they've done, what changes they've had, and just our existence has been part of that. So I think what I recognize is that we have directly helped people who are facing issues in their workplaces, who have been burned out as members of marginalized workforce, who absolutely we've directly helped them stay in maternity midwifery, go sideways and not leave the profession. But we've also helped by just existing in the spaces that we didn't exist in before.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I think you must have helped thousands of people. And I love the retention work that you're doing, and I'd love to find out more about that. Let's unpack that, because in midwifery in general, there is a huge midwifery shortage right across the board, and the stats are just shocking for all the midwives that get recruited and come in. There's the same amount walking out the door pretty much. So what are the challenges for the marginalized midwifery workforce, and how are you supporting them?
Can I just give some context before we go into that conversation? And I'm going to let Nafiza take over about how we support them. But when we came in, I did some number crunching and I looked at the NMC register. And considering how much the NHS prides itself on diversity in its workforce, we recognise that actually that 20% diversity isn't in all fields. Midwifery and ambulatory services, so in ambulance services and in midwifery, we have the least representation when it comes to ethnic diversity in comparison to any of the other fields. So that is something to recognise in regards to health inequalities, because those areas have high risk emergency, urgent triage care occurring all the time. So when we talk about triage and we talk about how people access support and help, the communities we're talking about often have an internal mechanism of triage before they call for help even. They've asked their mother, they've asked their sister-in-law, they've asked their mother-in-law, they've asked their partner, they've asked the neighbour down the road who had a baby 2 years ago. They've talked about all of these problems with everyone else before they've even picked up the phone. And then if we as triage midwives and services are saying, oh, take 2 paracetamol, lie down, give me a call in 2 hours and let me know what's happening, we're delaying care further. We know that if people are unwell, the worse they are, the harder it is to get them back to baseline. And that's more likely when mortality and morbidity is going to occur when people are really unwell. So early intervention is key. Better than intervention is prevention, but early intervention is key. And if we're not having representation in these services where people who are from these communities say, oh, well, should we just bring them straight in? Should we just, if someone's got a language barrier, rather than trying to have a conversation over the phone where we're struggling, let's just bring them straight in because what could be going on? We are going to have these issues come up. So the numbers, when I was coming back to it, I've gone in a roundabout way, haven't I? So it's one of the things when you're neurodivergent, your brain bounces around. But coming back to the numbers, in midwifery on the NMC register, this is dual registered at the time, only 5.5% were from Black, African, Caribbean communities. So that's not compared, if you compare that to national statistics, what the national Black population is like in the UK, that's underrepresented. And when it comes to South Asian communities, only 2.5% of those were Asian, South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, Bengali, are midwives and dual registered nurses and midwives that were on the NMC register. So that, in comparison to the 12.5% national representation in our national demographics, is extremely underrepresented.
That is so interesting. That is really interesting. And I never knew that. So thank you so much for bringing those stats. And do you think that's one of the reasons why, say, Black and Asian women are at so much higher risk of poorer maternal health outcomes?
I would say that is one of a big risk, because you need representation. You need people in the workforce to look like your demographics, because who is going to advocate? Who is going to understand? It's the nuances. It's understanding those inequalities, those differences. Health behaviours are different from community to community. So if people don't recognise that from the onset, how are we going to care for them in the way that they need to be cared? So definitely, we need more recruitment, we need more representation, and that is the key to help reduce those figures, those outcomes, those poor outcomes.
So how can you encourage more fabulous, amazing midwives such as yourself to join the profession?
Very good question. And that's one of the things that ASAM really, really wants to do. And we would hope that when people from our community see us, it gives them some inspiration that actually you can be in a position of leadership or in a senior role. There is hope, there is options. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, nursing and midwifery within our communities is not regarded as a high status profession, because within South Asian communities, if the choice was there, it would be medicine, it would be law, all of those things. So our communities don't understand really what midwifery or nursing is. What does it look like in the UK? They probably have a preconceived notion of what midwifery nursing is from back home. So I think it's so important to go to the communities, right to the grassroots, and showcase, and not showcase to the ones that want to come into the profession. It's about the whole community, because at the end of the day, we talk about choosing options and whatever. Parents still within our communities have a big impact on what pathways children should take. Whether that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. That's part of how it works. But if we can sort of clearly show them what it is, it's a good profession, it's important to be in these professions because it will support the community, I think we will hopefully get more people coming in. It's not that people don't want to come in, they do want to come in, but it's about convincing and putting that impression out there that it is it's a positive role, it's an important role, it's to support, it's to advocate, all of those things.
And how
I'm
much
going
of a
to come at it
difference it can
from,
make.
yeah, sorry.
I was just saying how much a difference it can make. It really can make such a difference to people's lives. Go on, Benash.
I just wanted to kind of go from it from a different lens. I came from a family who was very conservative, very religious, and actually all my mother wanted for me was to go to university. She didn't care what I picked. But because I was very young, I went straight from college to university. I didn't even know midwifery was a career option. It wasn't until I read prospectuses back to front and thought, oh, these two really sound interesting. I'm going to go for one of these two professions. And it was between teaching and midwifery, and now I'm doing both. But back then, midwifery wasn't even something that was on my radar. It was only after I got into midwifery, and then I told my mum and explained to her what midwifery actually is, that she told me my grandma was a village midwife in Kashmir. Because those are the kind of conversations we don't normally have with unmarried young daughters unless they get married and are pregnant.
Wow, so your grandmother was a midwife.
My grandma was the midwife in Kashmir,
Wow.
in our little village.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. So I'm just thinking, we've talked about how to support midwives and encourage them to come into the profession. What is the work that you're doing with parents to do with health inequalities?
Oh, we have the direct work that we've currently been undertaking for the last few years, but we have our wish list of what we really want to do. And I'm going to go into our wish list because I'm going to put it out there into the universe, and into everyone's ears who's listening, that this is something that needs to be done. And it's so important that we work with the communities to address the health inequalities. We can train staff, we can improve things from a health service perspective through research and policy change, etc., and training staff. But we actually need to talk about what is already those health behaviours and the health literacy levels in the communities we're talking about that also need to be addressed. There are issues and there is stigma around loss and talking about baby loss, about mental health, about support and mental health and medication and mental health. There are a lot of issues that we are lacking the health literacy in our community. And we know by changing that and improving that health literacy, you don't just change the outcomes for an individual, you change the mindset of the families going forwards and how people raise their children and how they share that health literacy. So we want to work with educating the communities directly through our midwifery membership. We want to get some funding so that we can do training around neonatal life support, around adult life support, but as well as that, around what is health, what is physical health, mental health, reproductive health. Women's health is, across the board has been unrecognised for a very long time, from research all the way into medication and how we support and recognise things with GP services. So we want to teach that to the communities, and we want to help them advocate for themselves better to be able to get the access to the areas they need.
Advocating is such a key word at the moment, and as a charity ourselves, we're doing a lot of work on that. And you were talking about some of the barriers that are out there, and they've been out there for such a long time. And like you say, just the simple knowledge of, if you have any concerns, please call your maternity unit. And it's so important, the response they get on the other end, because as you said earlier, by the time someone's actually picked up the phone and found the right number to call, I have so many phone calls from parents that have got an issue and they don't know who to ring. They have no idea. So we have to help them register in the first instance. And then I'm spending so much time finding their local maternity unit number to help them. All the NHS websites are so different. So for me to give a general sort of navigation rule just doesn't work. Some maternity trusts will say, "Oh, call this number if you're X amount of weeks, call this number if you're that amount of weeks." it is very, very confusing. So we like to train midwives to say, if someone has actually found the right number and has actually called you with an issue, please don't tell them to wait a couple of hours or see how they feel tomorrow or whatever. Get them to come in. And we totally appreciate and understand the resources you have, and you're under a lot of pressure and the beds might be full, but it's so much better to have somebody else come in and get assessed correctly rather than it be too late. So the work you're doing there is just absolutely fantastic. And it's just a shame that we're still having to do this type of work years and years later, because that's how I started in 2012, educating that baseline. But we just have to continue. We have to continue with the training and the education, and it is a ripple effect. It will make an impact and a difference later on. So what are your future plans for the rest of this year? What projects have you guys got coming up?
Oh, okay. Nafiza, do you want to talk about our plans for our membership?
Okay, so for our plans for a membership, obviously, we want to increase our membership, and we want to obviously widen the reach as well. And yes, our name is Association of South Asian Midwives, but we accept anybody who needs help, support, because it's the same for everybody. So I think that's something that we need to put out there, because a lot of people think South Asian, you have to be South Asian to be a member. Obviously, the focus is there, but we will support anybody and welcome them on board. So the reach is to get more members on board. We offer quite a lot for our members. As Benash said earlier, we do well-being, we provide sessions on leadership, we bring in guest speakers to provide insights into things, challenges. We've got some sessions coming up this year. We've just been looking at what we can offer this year, so we've got quite a few amazing speakers who are on board, and we are doing that on a monthly basis. So it's just giving supporting our members and giving them the chance to network and engage with leaders who are out there and understand the field, what's out there on offer. Because a lot of people don't realize that, yes, you're a midwife, but there are so many pathways that one can take, so much work out there that you can do. It's not just all about being on the shop floor, but there are things out there that you could influence and support the profession and how you can empower others. What else? I'm forgetting myself. What else is there? As I said, well-being. I think it's very important that we look after each other, because knowing what's going out there, the burnout, the everything, it's so important to have that space so that you can come and have that rant in a safe space. You can come and seek advice. You can come into a space where you don't feel that you are the only one going through what you're going through, but actually there are people there who face the same things, the same challenges, and as a collaborative, you can look at solutions, look at ideas, look at different approaches and support each other. So I think that's key, providing them with mentorship, providing them with pre-interview preps, because it's just not out there. And as we know, people who look like us have less opportunities, less support out there, and that is a fact. So we try to provide that. And I think in a lot of our staff that we have supported, they have achieved or gone into the to the jobs they've gone for with our mentorship. If they face challenges, we've supported them, we've helped them to stay on in the profession, as Benash said, because a lot they are having challenges and they're incredible, and the pressure is on to leave and just not do it anymore. But I think we've helped many to see the light, to support and ensure that they stay. So yes, I don't know if I've missed anything, Benash.
Yeah, no, I think our midwifery membership is open to all marginalised groups, and actually we also have allies who are members, and their membership means that what they are doing is contributing a space. So if they are a member, we can use that to fund and give a free space to someone who isn't able to afford membership fees. And that's really kind of them, because they are putting back into a system that they believe is supporting marginalised midwifery workforce. So we really do appreciate our ally members, as well as all of the marginalised members who can afford to pay and do pay us to be able to continue to do this work in supporting the marginalised midwifery workforce. I think the other thing is we've got a number of opportunities where we are looking into research and development and reporting on how access issues are occurring, but also education. We are looking at complex medical needs that our communities are possibly facing at higher rates, and how that's impacting them. So yeah, we're working with different collaborators who we haven't yet finalised, but we will be working towards addressing the health inequalities in a variety of needs directly with our communities. We want to go towards improving the health literacy, as I've already mentioned. That is one of the big things that we want to work directly with our communities, and we're hoping to set up community membership, and we really would and do need volunteers that can help us with that. So if anyone is passionate about health inequalities, supporting marginalised midwives, or actually marginalised communities from ethnic minority communities, as well as health and maternity, do consider getting in contact with us. Our website is at asammidwives.co.uk. Our contact details, you can contact us directly through the website, and we will be in touch with you, because we really need passionate people who are passionate about what we're doing to support the ongoing work and the opportunities that are ahead. Unfortunately, there's only two of us now. Sundus has stepped down from her director role because she is growing her family, and her priorities are now focusing on her family, which means there's even fewer of us at that level, and we do need support to be able to continue doing the work and to grow the way we wanted to grow. We've done a lot in 5 years, and we just aim to continue doing more in the next 5.
Yes, we have done a lot. I have to clarify that. And we are actually part of a lot of collaborative we're doing a lot of collaborative work. And I was actually looking at the sort of organizations that we're working with. I thinking, wow, when are we getting the time to do all this? But we make the time somehow. One group that we're working very closely with is the Wellbeing of Women Health Collaborative. So looking at the wider issues now of women's health, because it's all connected. You know, if you can get it right beforehand, you will lead to a better pregnancy and birth. So there is definitely so much that we are doing, and it's trying to accommodate, because we want to do everything, but obviously it's about capacity, and it's about, you know, making sure we do the right thing and try and sort of achieve what we've promised to achieve. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, your passion and your energy is absolutely infectious. And so I'm sure you're going to gather lots of support from all sorts of directions. So if a midwife wants to become a member, do they just go onto your website?
Yeah. And
Fabulous.
anyone who's interested in anything we do, it's all on our website. We have updated it recently with all the projects we've done historically and all the reports we've contributed to historically. You can learn so much about us if you care to do so, but you can also contact us directly and hopefully arrange to talk to us if you need to do so too.
Absolutely. The door is open.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I've learned so much, and I wish you all the best in your quest. And obviously, if Mama Academy can support you in any way, then you just let us know.
Thank you for Mama Academy for doing all the amazing work you've always been doing and to continue to do the amazing work. I think that advocacy and supporting families, it's the crux of it. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing that as a midwife or if I'm doing that in the voluntary sector. When people do the same as me, you are a colleague, and therefore you automatically fall in our wider family. So thank you, Heidi, and the Mama Academy team.
Thank you so much.
Echo exactly. Thank you very, very much, Heidi. It's been a pleasure.
Well, take care. See you soon.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye.